So Man United's midfield hunt is looking like it's getting increasingly more difficult. There's reports coming out that Elliot Anderson to Manchester City is a done deal. Carlos Balaba's form has just fallen off a cliff, and he was Ruben Amorim's number one choice. Ruben Amorim is no longer at Manchester United, so it feels like we might not go for Carlos Balaba. While Adam Morton is great, he's more of a number 8. He's not exactly a Casemiro replacement. You then look at Sandro Tonali. Sandro Tonali would be phenomenal, but he wants to go back to Italy. There is some good midfield names out there. João Gomez for maybe a 6/8 role. Matheus Fernandes, who's more of an 8. But they're more Agate replacements. Man United need a Casemiro replacement. Casemiro's importance to Manchester United is incredibly underrated, and replacing Casemiro is going to be very difficult. Manchester United have lost their last 7 games that Casemiro has not started, compared to 2 losses in about 25 that Casemiro has started. So Man United now, it looks like they're looking at La Liga. They're looking at a big La Liga name. Who is that big mystery La Liga name that Man United are looking at? Is it Lucien Agoume? Well, he's more of an Agate replacement. He's not a big name. Is it Tchouaméni? Is it Camavinga? What is the latest on those players? Because Andy Mitten is a very credible journalist, and he is the one sort of giving an update on Manchester United looking at a La Liga midfielder. So I'm going to give you all the latest Manchester United news that you need to know in the next 10 minutes. There is reports coming out that Newcastle are demanding 85 million for Tonali, and that United see him as a successor to Casemiro. And I think with Elliot Anderson set to go to City, I think Tonali might become our number 1, Tonali or Balaba, but I don't know if we're going to get Tonali. It depends if he's been priced out of a move to Italy. I think we're going to be starting to look in La Liga, and I'm going to go into Andy Mitten's reports on this news, who is a very good journalist. So anyway, guys, let's get into the news. Let's get into the stories. If you do enjoy today's video, feel free to hit that like button, and you're welcome to subscribe if you're new. So, what has the credible Andy Mitten had to say on this? Andy Mitten is one of the best journalists in the Man United space, in my opinion. Manchester United are looking at a few midfielders in Spain who would absolutely raise eyebrows. Now, he says raise eyebrows. Now, one thing I know for sure is we have looked at Lucien Agoume, and Vival does like Lucien Agoume. But Lucien Agoume, I don't think is a name that raises eyebrows. I think he's an Agate replacement. I look at João Gomez, I look at Matheus Fernandes, I look at Lucien Agoume, and I think they're good second midfield signings. But we need a big main midfield signing. You know, an Elliot Anderson at Tonali would be a big main midfield signing. So those names are Tchouaméni and Camavinga. We've been linked to both Tchouaméni and Camavinga. I think Tchouaméni is probably maybe the better of the two, but then I think if you take away Camavinga's fitness record, maybe he's the better of the two. So what do we have in terms of links? Well, I'm going to start with the links to, of course, Lucien Agoume, because I do know that we are somewhat looking at him. According to many rumours, Vival has been looking at him. And then we'll get into the links on the likes of Tchouaméni and Camavinga, because we're looking at a La Liga midfielder, and there's three Frenchmen that we've kind of been linked with. Vival has identified Lucien Agoume as a prime target to strengthen the midfield this summer. Vival has kept Agoume on the shortlist, viewing him as the ideal destroyer midfielder. Agoume is seen as great value at around 30 million euros, especially given Seville's openness to offers. What we do know is Seville is open to doing a deal for Lucien Agoume. We were actually linked to him in the summer a little bit when we couldn't get Balaba as a Balaba alternative, and we've been linked to him again in the last month as a name that United are considering. He's not expected to cost really much more than £30 million, and he's seen as an affordable midfield option, but more so for depth. He's not seen as the guy that's going to come in and replace Casemiro. He's seen as that option for depth. Now, the best way I would describe Agoume is probably who Brighton would look at signing if they sold Balaba. If Brighton had sold Balaba to us in the summer for 80 million or so, I think Agoume is who Brighton would have brought in. That's probably the best way I could describe him. He's a DM that can play centre mid. I think he's better than Agate on the ball. I think off the ball he's quite physical. He's good at covering ground. And if we go back to that Newcastle game, Tonali and Joelinton just ran Casemiro and Maino ragged. We lost that game in midfield. I mean, the lack of energy and intensity from everyone was pretty atrocious. But I look at that Newcastle game, and the reason we lost that game is the midfield got ran around. We got dominated physically in midfield by Joelinton and Tonali. They could run more. They were more physical than us. And I think Agoume is that physical type profile that will definitely need a bit more physicality in midfield, but we also need someone with that technicality. And I think Agoume has a little bit of a similar kind of style to Balaba. I don't think he's the best player in the world. It'll be interesting to see how he does in the Premier League. It's much harder than La Liga, but he's definitely a good midfielder. Now, one player that is an absolute baller is Camavinga. If this guy was guaranteed to stay fit, like, he's almost number one. I think Camavinga, when fit, is incredible. Now, you don't want to sign Camavinga as the Casemiro replacement. I mean, Camavinga was the Casemiro replacement at Real Madrid, him and Tchouaméni. But Real Madrid are reportedly willing to sell him for at least 75 million euros, which is about 65 million pounds. Now, a fully fit Camavinga for 65 million pounds is good business. We scouted him when he was at Rennes as well. The problem with Camavinga is he's like Mason Mount. He's like Luke Shaw. I don't want to spend 65 million quid on a player that can't stay fit. Now, don't get me wrong. He's better than Mason Mount. He's better than Luke Shaw when fit. He's a phenomenal defensive midfielder. But look at Man City and the issues they've had with Rodri. I mean, Rodri, they had four amazing seasons out of Rodri where he was staying fit. But Rodri can barely stay fit for Man City now. And I think that's one of the reasons City have fallen off in the last 2 years. You know, I look at Camavinga and I'm like, this guy's brilliant. This guy's phenomenal when fit. But the problem with Camavinga is he can't stay fit. If he's guaranteed to stay fit, you pay 16 million for him easily. But he misses game after game after game. This season already, he's missed 10 games. Last season, he missed 21 games. No, sorry, not 21 games, 31 games. The season before, he missed 10 games. I mean, he's missing so many games. You know, his reoccurring injuries, a lot of them muscle injuries as well, which means it's more likely to reoccur. That's kind of what puts me off him. Other than that, I think he's mint. Which makes me hope that if we're looking at a big midfielder that's going to raise eyebrows, because if we go back, raise eyebrows. I know we're looking at Agoume. I know Agoume is a La Liga midfielder we're looking at, but he's not one that would absolutely raise eyebrows. Camavinga would, Tchouaméni would, Pedri would. We're not going to get Pedri. But Tchouaméni is one that raises eyebrows. If we're looking at a La Liga midfielder that's going to raise eyebrows, this is who I get. Manchester United will continue to pursue Real Madrid midfielder Tchouaméni, despite the Spanish club rejecting an offer of 90 million euros. Apparently, I don't think we ever made an offer of 90 million euros for Tchouaméni. Maybe someone else did. Tchouaméni is going to cost between 80 to 100 million pounds. I don't think he's had his best season this year, but he is a very good midfielder. I think he gets into our starting 11. I think he's a very good Casemiro replacement because he was Real Madrid's Casemiro replacement. And he's 25 and he's young, and I would absolutely love Tchouaméni at Manchester United. Can I see us getting Tchouaméni? No. Could I see us getting Camavinga? Maybe, but there'll be a reason why Real Madrid want to sell him, because he's injury prone. Real Madrid want to sell you a player when they're past their best or they're injury prone. That is my only fear. I mean, look, there's a lot of La Liga midfielders out there I like. I mean, Pedri would be unbelievable. I don't think we're going to get him. You know, we could go to PSG, Vitinha, João Gomes. There's a lot of good midfielders out there. I think United need to be smart. Right now, I think if I'm Man United, I go probably all out for Sandro Tonali and hope that he's willing to move to Man United, and, you know, and hope that he can't go back to Italy because his price tag as the DM. I'd go all out for Mateus Fernandes as the 8, and I'd go all out for João Gomes as the depth option. But if you've got a chance of Tchouaméni at a good price, of course you go for it. This was another interesting thing that Andy Mitten said today on his pod. No one at the club thinks that this is a fully finished squad capable of winning the Premier League. Even some players that have impressed recently, people at the club are thinking, yeah, he's doing well. But is he the player that should be starting week in, week out for a team to win the league? We don't know about that. I think that would be players like Dalot, Luke Shaw, Maguire. They've done all right lately, but you're not going to win the Premier League with Dalot, Luke Shaw, and Maguire being 3 of your back 4, you know? And I quite like that thinking from Man United. Even though things are going well, and in the past when things have gone well, we've never really done much. When Oli came second, he barely had a transfer window. I think we got Cavani in a panic, Pelistri. I mean, Ahmed actually ended up working well, but that was for the future. Oli, I think, did a good. I think when we've done well, we almost have worse transfer windows in the past, whereas when we've done bad, we spent more. Whereas I think Ineos are like, even if we do well, and let's say we finish 3rd this year, I think Ineos are aware of the fact that we need to do a lot in the window for depth. And that even if we come 3rd this season, there's still a lot of work to do because some of these players aren't going to take us to the next level. And I quite like that thinking, rather than, we've come 3rd, we've got Champions League football, we don't need to invest as much, the squad's on track, because we know that the Glazers have only ever invested for UCL football. The seasons that we get UCL football, I feel like we do less in the transfer window than the seasons we don't. So that was said by Andy Mint, which I thought was interesting. But obviously, sales is going to have an impact on who we can bring in. Obviously, Højlund and Rashford sales I spoke about earlier. Rashford's sale is reportedly advanced. I mean, who knows? But there is reports that it's pretty much done and they've agreed a structure and something. But I don't think anything will be officially done until a couple of months or so. But anyway, that is your latest Manchester United news, just rounded up in 10 minutes. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know which midfielder you'd sign. If you could sign 3 midfielders, because I think we need 3 to replace Casemiro, Ugarte, and 1 other for depth, who are your picks? Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.